So hello and welcome to the Florida Golf Experience. Dan Henson here with Christian Martin. We are here to have another great podcast. Christian, who do we have today?
We have Mark McCumber today. Looking forward to this interview. He's really good. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about like his company that builds golf courses and some of the experiences he had. So, was a 10-time PGA winner. He was also won the 1988 Players Champion.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the fifth major. I think a lot of
majors. We've talked about it numerous times.
Numerous times.
He's a broadcaster, which we're going to steal some secrets from him, hopefully. And so we hope you guys enjoy this podcast coming up. With 10 times on the PGA Tour winner and winning the Players Championship in '88, and with your architect company. I mean, I would love to know more about that and your broadcasting career. We actually want to tap your brain. We were talking about how we're getting into this podcasting thing, and I do it for real estate, but golf is a new podcast for us, and we're going to tap your brain about broadcasting.
Absolutely.
Well, it may not take long to find out what's in there, but I'm happy to talk to you.
Good. What are your, tell me a little bit about your Ryder Cup experience, in '89, I guess, is, where you guys ended up tying the Ryder Cup, I think, and Europe retained the cup. How did that go over?
That's an interesting, you start with that one. That was the most pressure-packed, exciting second to the tour school.
Right.
Wow. I stood on the last hole at Oak Hill with a putt to tie the U.S. Open win, finished second to Curtis there. I've been in interesting situations to win tournaments, Players Tour Championship, Western Opens, Doral, and never is the intensity when you're playing for your team and for the other 11 guys and representing your tour. It was more enjoyable when it was over, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bert Yancey really helped me in my career with some of the pre-shot routine that I developed early in my career that helped me be more consistent. But Paul Azinger from your area also remembers this from Bert Yancey. He used to say, "You're not having fun unless you can't spit." Well, there wasn't much saliva the week of the Ryder Cup. We were playing at the Belfry, so it was a home field for them. And if you might remember, we had lost in '85 at that same course, and U.S. had never, as you know, for 50 years it wasn't a competition; it was more of an exhibition. Right. But we lost in '85 there for the first time in a long time. I think it was. Sam Torrance made a putt on the 18th green to win. And then they come to Muirfield Village, Nicklaus's home, our tour, our spot, and we got beat again. I don't think never lost two in a row. So this is kind of the beginning of the major deal of the Ryder Cup in modern times. And Ray Floyd was our captain, who I so dearly respect. And at the banquet, the first night over there with all the teams, we had some of the dignitaries from Great Britain. It was pretty interesting. But he introduces our team, and he said, "I'd like to introduce our American team, the 12 best players in the world." And Freddie Couples is a little younger than me, and we're sitting at the same table. He looks at me, kind of blushes. He goes, I see Faldo and Seve and Langer. They're all sitting across from there from us. And he just put it on us, He was trying to build up our confidence. The competition was fun, very exciting. I played in 3 matches, won 2, lost 1. Played with Mark Calcavecchi in round 1, and I didn't help him very much. We lost on the 18th hole. And then Tom Kite and I won our match against Bernhard Langer and Canizares. And then a very interesting happened to me, and it's not a personal thing. I mean, they always talk about this is the player who lost the point or who won the cup, but it's the whole 3 days. It's everybody involved. But we start the last day behind, and I'm in the 18th fairway at the Belfry on a hole that's ridiculously hard. Very hard driving hole, water left, water short of the green, very long back then, 480, 490, uphill second shot. That was long in those days. And we had a great start that day, coming from 3 or 4 points behind, had gotten ahead or tied. It looks like we're going to pull it out. And all of a sudden you can hear the cheers ahead of us on 18. And I find out in hindsight that we lost 4 or 5 straight matches. Calcavecchia lost, Payne Stewart lost, Ken Green lost, Fred Couples lost. And if you're losing the last hole, I'm thinking as a player, the best that could be is we got a half a point, because you're not going to lose the last hole if it went there and win. So I'm on the 18th fairway, and when Ken Green three putted, the European team stormed the green and they're jumping up and down. And Ray Floyd's next to me. I'm in the third to last match. Behind me is Lanny Watkins and Curtis Strange. And I said, "Did we just lose?" He says, "Nope. But if you don't win," and I was tied at the time with Bernhard, with trying to think of Gordon Brand Jr. And he says, "If you don't win and Lanny and Curtis don't win, we're going to lose. We can get a tie out of this." And that's the only time. It's the only time I felt selfish in the Ryder Cup. I said, "I don't want that book to say McCumber lost." somehow I closed my eyes, got a little bit of saliva in my mouth, not much, and hit a 2-iron on the green, made par. Gordon Brand wasn't able to make par, and I won my match. Then Lanny in fashion comes in there striding, and he wins his match. And this was Curtis in his heyday. He just won his second Open in a row, where I'd finished second to him. And he's playing Faldo, who was Nick Faldo. And Curtis, I think, lipped out a 2-iron with a 1-up lead. So that sealed the half. So it was a half. It wasn't what we wanted, but it sure felt a lot better at the dinner that night than losing.
No, that's a great story. That's a great way to start off.
That's a great way to start off.
I appreciate that. I wanted to kind of tap in a little bit of how you got into golf, because, a lot of these guys are coming through college now. And, my son just graduated from FSU. There's a lot of guys that play in the colleges down here. How'd you kind of get through into, you were working and just practicing until you got your card, right?
Yeah, I didn't come through the normal way. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, my mother was pregnant with my parents' fourth child. There were 4 boys in our family. I'm the third. And we had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in Jacksonville, Florida. So Dad said, we got to expand our house. So they found a house not too far away from where we lived. It just happened to be on the Hyde Park public golf course. Donald Ross designed from the 20s, city owned. And my parents weren't golfers. And we moved onto the 14th hole of par 5. And, before we knew it, we were over there hunting for golf balls and going under the fence and kind of becoming little golf rats around the area. My
the
mother,
good old days.
yeah. I love the way I grew up. My mother bought a set of golf clubs so she could maybe take up the game, because one of our neighbors, one of the moms, played golf. She thought that would be nice. She never really got into it till much later in life, when we built our first golf course up at the Ravines in North Florida, and we all moved out there. But we would grab her clubs and hit them around the yard, then sneak over at night right before dark and play that 14th hole. So I just grew up. I grew up in that environment. And then when we were, 8, 9, 10 years old, the pro would let us pick a bucket of crabgrass. And when we filled, you'd cut it out with a knife in the old days, and you pick it and put it in the bucket. As soon as we filled the bucket, we could play golf for free. Well, that bucket was filled in about 18 minutes. Nice. And it's 600-yard course, old style, circular golf course, all no development on the golf course. And we, greens and tees were 20 yards apart. I would play 54 holes in a day carrying my bag as a kid. We could play in 2.5 hours. And we spent our whole life on the golf course growing up, our spare time. After school, I would hit balls as I got older. And they all knew you. And I could throw my shag bag, my, practice bag. I could throw it under the bushes in my 5-iron or my wedge. And when the bus dropped me off there, I'd go back, pick up the balls down the side of the 14th fairway and do it again. Started mowing greens, driving tractors, setting manual sprinklers. That's how we got into golf. It was just because my parents moved to a basketball court. I don't think I would have made the NBA. But I don't think I'm a Spud Webb. I don't think I have that ability. But that's how we got into golf. It became a giant part of our lives, and it stayed that way occupationally, hobby-wise, love-wise. It just was a big part of us.
That's great story.
Well, so here's a better memory for you. You and Ben won the World Cup. How did you and Ben, mesh together, and how, you and Ben still pretty good friends? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if you can't mesh with Ben Crenshaw, something's wrong with you, not him.
Correct.
That name, Gentle Ben, when you get to know him, is truly appropriate. He's a gentleman and obviously a giant in the game of golf. He's very in love with the game. He romanticizes about it. I love being around him. I had gotten into architecture through my family's landscape business before I was on tour. And we always knew we wanted to do golf. That's a whole nother story, how we got into our first golf course design and we constructed it ourselves in North Florida. But Ben would come to me in the 80s talking about, Mark, I'm getting into design, and we would look at things together. So when we get over to Royal Melbourne, which is one of the classic courses in the world, the composite course where we played the World Cup, we both went a couple of weeks early, played the Australian Open. They had a tournament on Royal Melbourne the week before the World Cup called the Bicentennial. It was a one-time 200-year anniversary of the country. So we played in that to kind of get to know the course. I had actually played the course in '76 when I went over with a group of young players trying to get our cards. But we played the whole week together. He won the individual. He played beautifully. And that was a real eye-opening into sandbelt golf. It's just breathtaking natural architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I grew up and was natural, not contrived. There weren't white stakes everywhere. There was 2 little ponds on the golf course I grew up on. Royal Melbourne, I can't remember any water on it, but it's a beautiful, breathtaking course. So we talked architecture the whole time. We went and took pictures over at Kingston Heath, and we looked around the area at other courses. But the great part of the week, getting to spend a week with him, was being his partner. And funny story, we all know his prowess on the greens. I was really hitting the ball tee to green as good as I could hit it, but I was struggling mightily with my putting. And he just would say, Mark, just tap the back of the ball. He kept it so simple. Well, as things would happen, we're in the last group the last day. We're in the lead, and we're playing with Jumbo and Jet Ozaki, the 2 Japanese stars. And Jumbo was a king star. And we get to the last hole, and the wind's whipping at Royal Melbourne. The hole's playing really hard, and everybody was struggling. No one reached the green in regulation. And we had a 2-shot lead going into the hole. I'm in the greenside bunker, which wasn't a bad place in 2, and they were all off the green in 2. Well, the Ozaki brothers both play their wedges into the green, and neither one of them are inside of 10 feet. I would say 15 to 20 feet. Ben hits his pitch up there because they were outside of me to about 5 or 6 feet, and I'm in the bunker. So if you're trying not to get caught up in results, but you're thinking, well, we're still 2 shots ahead and we're better off than they are right now. So I thinned my bunker shot a little bit and left it about 20 feet away. And those greens are like Augusta. And,
Wow.
and I thought not much of it. We're still great. And I putted it about 3 or 4 feet by, and I was struggling with my putting, and I said, I'll go ahead and finish. And I missed. And now I'm thinking, I can't believe I did that to Ben. Oh, he's fine. One of them are going to miss, and he can 2-putt. If they both miss, it's not even a story. Well, I'm standing over to the side, and Jumbo makes it. Jet makes it. Now I said,
Oh my gosh.
And now Ben's got to make this after watching all that. And I said, boy, I said to his caddy, Tony Navarro, I said, I'm sorry. And he looked at me and smiled. Don't worry. He's going to make it. And he just pours it right in the center. I was so grateful. So I think I finished 12th or 15th individually, but we won the team. He won the individual. And it's an experience I still smile about when I think about it.
Kind of love to see that confidence, I mean, to have that kind of no problem that's going in.
Well, it's really good when your caddy has it, but that means he's seen him go in all the time.
That's classic.
Well, I mean, he's got obviously one of the top 5 putters of all time. I mean,
oh yeah,
he can roll the rock, man.
Yeah, he can. And it reminds me of one of your early guests. I understand you had a childhood friend of mine, Gary Koch. We played junior golf together.
We did.
And Gary and Ben are in the same category, if you want to know the truth. Gary had that long, fluid stroke. I remember as a junior just being jealous. My goodness, he makes it from everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was one of Gary's great strengths, along with the many other things. And as you know, became one of, I think, the best golf broadcasters ever. But
yeah, he's great.
Yeah, it's fun to be around guys like that because I always I was very lucky to win right away. I think I won my 14th tournament after qualifying on Monday at Doral. I won on Sunday and made about an 8-footer on the last hole to beat Bill Rogers. And it's funny that immediately when you win right away in your tour, I mean, I Monday qualified there and won. And then the next week I'm playing with current winners. I'm being paired with the Nicklases and the Trevinos and the Irwins and the Watsons. And I remember right away going, I know I've got some ability, but I am going to just try to draw anything I can from these guys. Why is he that good? What does he do good?
Right.
So when you played with a Gary Koch or a Ben Crenshaw, you would look, what is so great about their putting? And it doesn't mean you'll copy their style, but there's little things you can emulate that can certainly help you.
Yeah, that man, what a great experience that would be.
What was it like playing with Trevino?
I love playing with Lee because I yap on the golf course. I whistle and talk, guys would probably want to go down the other side of the fairway with me if they were quiet. But Lee could turn it off and on. He was one of the greatest shot makers I've ever played with. I had the privilege, one of my very early years, early 80s, playing with him in the Texas Open in San Antonio. He ended up winning. We were in the last group together. He put on a show. I mean, on the 8th hole, there's a drivable par 4, and he drove it up on the edge of the green, but he had no stance. Stand correctly, he'd be in a bunker 3 feet below the ball, like chipping from the metal. And
Right.
I'm thinking, what's he going to do? And he looked at me and kind of winked, like, watch this. And there's a giant gallery. He's a Texan, and he's Lee Trevino, and I'm this young pro that only won once or twice, I think once at the time. And I'm watching him, and he kind of looks at me almost, I don't know if he said, watch this, but that's the look. And he puts the club in his right hand, turns the club upside down, and chips it up there tight and makes birdie. I mean, he was a showman. I'm
He
thinking,
was.
wow, you did that while trying to win a tournament? You could have played it the other way and for sure got it on the green. But anyway, it was special.
I want to talk a little bit about your company I got you up here with, because you kind of went into your architect stuff and you have a lot of golf courses under your belt right now. How's the company doing? And you got big plans going forward?
Well, I had wanted to retire because in 2008, when the economy went south, as you know, and golf took a real beating for a long time. Clubs were closing, courses were being closed, play was down. But what's happened is with COVID, that horrible disease, it was good for golf as it keep people back outdoors. And the golf industry is booming right now, as you both probably know. But unusual. Unlike most pros, I didn't get into golf design because I was a successful tour player. I got into golf design because my oldest brother, Jim, out of school, started a landscape business that my other brothers and we all worked together. And we built that into a pretty big regional landscape design firm, always wanting to get into golf. And a developer we worked for up in North Florida, Mr. Paul Armstrong, became a dear friend and kind of a business mentor. And he had bought a 400-acre piece of land in North Florida in the little town of Middleburg, just south of Jacksonville, about 20 miles, that had over 100-foot elevation change on Black Creek, which is a river. It was,
Wow.
you would think you're in North Carolina. It was breathtaking. And we talked him into letting us, and he wasn't a golfer, letting us build the roads, do the land plan, build a golf course. He gave us 30 of the lots of the 180 lots, and we went and sold them one-on-one. I was selling several tour players, Andy Bean, Craig Stadler, several of them bought them, Phil Hancock, friends of ours as an investment. And we raised the money to build a golf course on a shoestring. And that was our first design, knowing we always wanted to do that. Then that is all in 1978, right when I was getting my card. And then when I won Doral, that gave us a little more exposure in 79. And I laughed. My brother Jim would say, I love it. Every time you win, the phone rings off the hook. I guess that makes you a better architect. And we would laugh. But it just puts your name out there. So, we did over 40 new courses and probably another 20 remodels since that period. But after the 2008, we kind of let it slow down. I went to China with my brother and we had a project over there. And I said, Jim, I just don't really want to do this to that extent anymore. And I was already in my 50s, was going to play a little bit on the Champions, but never really wanted to do that because my son, Tyler, who now has his tour card, our son, was at an age I didn't want to be away that much. So I think I played 70, maybe 70 events over the next 10 years, 5 to 10 a year after the first couple of years. But uh, things were quiet. And then with Golf Boom coming back, I got a call and I did a remodel of a course in Melbourne, Florida. And I'm now doing a new project in Alachua, Florida, not far from the University of Florida, on a breathtaking piece of land that's got 180-foot elevation change. It's like when you drive through Orlando or Brooksville, that kind of, down through Ocala.
Yep.
It's that kind of look right there in Alachua. So I'm really excited about that. I wasn't aggressively trying to get full-time back into it, but this has got my full attention. I was down there yesterday. I love the business. I love working with what our creator gave us, this beautiful earth we live on. And when you get a piece of land that's got the three elements that make great golf, and most great golf courses are what nature gave you. I'm sorry, whether it's a Pine Valley, Augusta, Pebble Beach, that's usually what I don't think you can contrive greatness when it comes to golf. You can make really good golf courses, but if you've got to move 4 million yards of dirt and artificially do everything, it's hard to compete with Pebble and Augusta elevation and trees. And what can nature give you? It can give you elevation change. It can give you some kind of water, whether it's a raised creek or a Pacific Ocean, and it can give you vegetation. So when you get all three of those things on a project, you've got something special.
When you started doing some broadcasting and stuff, did that give you a different perspective on maybe your golf architecture, walking the golf courses, not playing, and maybe seeing things, seeing everything versus only seeing what you saw as a player?
I think that's a good question. I really think it did something different for me. Playing the greatest course in the world, from 3 Opens at St. Andrews to Pine Valley to Wingfoot and Baltusrol and Oak Hill and Oakland Hills and Pebble and Spyglass, you have all that to draw from. You have a library of memories. I never tried to replicate one hole from another, but you could see features you loved. You could see styles you loved. And I think I was greatly influenced by Ross growing up on that and more of the old style. But broadcasting, what it taught me, it did get you to see a bigger picture. But what it reinforced to me is even the guys winning don't play perfect golf. And I think the public, and as a player, if you get in this myopic view, I've got to play perfectly to win. You don't. I've told people before, the great players, the big difference of a really great player and a good player, and everybody on tour is a good player. Getting your card, you're a good player, is their misses are better. It's not that they don't miss it, but they usually, unless they're having a bad week, they don't double cross. They don't miss 2 directions. Usually they can. Well, look at Scheffler, who, boy, I'm so impressed with that young man. And I was
amazing.
And I'm calling the action next week on PGA Tour Radio. I'm the analyst for the Memorial. I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but he was out of sorts on the front 9 on Sunday, but all the misses were left. And I love what I heard in the post-round interview, and we were analyzing it, and I was going like he might be a little quick. Understandable, the transition at the top, what might put him a little over it, and he pull it. And it was funny because I read where he asked his caddy, he asked Ted, see anything? And Ted goes, it looks good to me. And as they're walking over to the 10th tee, he says, think about this. Maybe you're just aimed a little bit to the left. We're looking for this brain surgery answer. No, at the top of your swing, your left knuckle is facing too far to the right. None of that.
Right.
And he hit that great drive on 10, and he just absolutely pured it the whole back 9. It's an interesting thing that when I would cover golf, I would see the golf course in a bigger scope, but it just made me realize that the good players miss shots, and it's how they deal with the bad shots, not that they hit them. And as much as I respect John Rahm as a golfer, you could see the frustration over the last 3 or 4 holes. And it's hard to play golf and not be frustrated and not let it affect you. And that's why the greatest players, it's not just physical, it's much more their mental control.
I was going to bring your quote up, and you kind of just already hit it. It says, the only thing you can really worry about is controlling your attitude towards the next shot.
That's right. It's funny. Another quick story. The week before I won at Doral, my first full year, I got my card in the summer. Back then there were two schools a year, and I got it in late June out in Albuquerque, and played I think 8 tournaments, qualifying on Mondays in that year, and then started out the next year and get to Doral in the spring. Um, but um, that's true. But I at the Honda, which back then was the Jackie Gleason before it became the Honda at Inverary Golf Course in the Lauderdale area. And back then we didn't have the electronic scoreboards. And if you looked at the paper on Friday morning and you see that 70 in ties was it even par or 1 under, and the weather was the same, you could almost double it and say, okay, the cut's going to be even or 1 under or 2 under. You could kind of figure it. Not that you want to dwell on that, but I mean, you're a rookie. Come on, you're trying to make cuts. And back then, if you made a cut, you were in the next week. You didn't have to go to Monday qualifying. It was giant. Well, anyway, I was in the cut, and I remember playing the last 4 or 5 holes at Inverary thinking, okay, if I can just get in, I'm going to play on the weekend. It was a big deal. And all of a sudden, I kind of wished a putt on 16 and missed it. And I wished a tee shot on 17 and got it in the rough, made bogey. And it came down to the last doggone putt on 18. It was about a 5-footer, and I couldn't stay there. And I kind of peeked and just burned the edge. And lo and behold, 70 players made the cut, and I was 1 outside the cut line. I was so PO'd. This before the Bob Rotellas, who's a friend of the world, and the Deborah Grahams, the sports psychologist. Now I've got him, and my wife was from there. And she said, oh, I was hoping you get to play next week. I said, honey, I got to go qualify. I'll see what I can do. Well, when I got down to Doral, the worst thing in the world is to miss a cut and go to the next week and try to get on a golf course to practice and see it. Playing a practice round, I was so upset. I said, here's the deal. I used the word isolate. I'm going to isolate every shot. And the second I give it my best and hit it, I'm done with it. And I'm going to isolate the next one. And it was pretty interesting. The opening hole at Doral's a par 5. I had a good drive, and I could reach with a 3-wood, and I blocked it into the greenside bunker. But really, that's not a bad place. But the week before, I might have been going, oh, I should have knocked that on the green. I would have wasted energy.
Right.
As soon as I hit it, it's gone. I went to the bunker. It's a bunker shot. As soon as I hit it, it was over with. I was able to do that for 68 holes. I look up at the leaderboard. I'm in the second to last group on Sunday, so I've been playing good. And I birdied the 14th hole at Doral, dogleg left. And I said, I must be doing pretty good. I wasn't going to look at the leaderboard. And I get to the 15th, the par 3. And I hit the green, ran it about 3.5 feet by. And right in my peripheral vision was the leaderboard. And I said, oh, my goodness, I've got a 3-shot lead.
Wow.
I peeked on the putt and missed it, because I was thinking of consequences, not just isolating. And I was able to gather myself, and I said, I'll give the field 1. That ain't happening again. And I bared down and ended up making the putt on 18 with all the pressure on. So it was a real lesson to me. And I wasn't always able to do that. I mean, but that was the goal,
That's impressive.
The live guys, they play 54-hole events. It's exhibition golf. Sorry, it's my personal opinion on it. But do you think that impacts those guys when they come into the majors now, and you got a 4-day event and maybe coming down the back 9 of the last day, and they haven't played a 4-day event in quite a while? Does that have any impact on them, or is that just normal pressure for the major champion?
I would find it hard to think that it doesn't have some impact. Everybody who plays on live obviously are good golfers. I mean, we talked about you can break 90, you're in the top 15% in the world. Well, if you can go shoot what professional golfers, I don't care if it's the Australian Tour, Australian, Asian, Japan Tour, they're all good players. And we know that the Live Tour was able to get a handful of the best players in the world. But I can't help but to think that if you're not fighting the pressure, I want to tell you something, guys. The pressure to make a cut sometimes is as big as the pressure to play the weekend, where you don't get paid if you don't make the cut over here. I think that's good for a professional golfer. When I've had a chance to win a tournament, and I have made a couple neat putts on the last hole to win before, and they'd say, did you feel just scared to death over that 10-footer to make it to win? And I go, well, no, because the fact that I had that means I was making them all week. I mean, my confidence was high. The 10-footer I made on Friday to make the cut was much harder. But
Right.
and when you're not having to do that week in and week out, I think it affects you. I do think 54 holes. I have a question for you. Just if you're a runner and it's a the 4 laps around a track, excuse me, 4 laps around the track is the normal Olympic standard. But you race in a league that only runs 3 laps around the track. Are you going to be quite as sharp? I don't know. Maybe you could be, but I think it could affect them. And I do think also for them, when they, like at the PGA, when Bryson and both he and John Rahm are great players, some of the world's best. Did they run out of gas? I don't think so. Did they maybe try harder because they only get those opportunities to play against where they used to play? Maybe. But, I just think that the PGA Tour's format, and most of professionals golf format of 4 days with a cut, is probably the way to become most finely tuned in golf as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, facing that cut because you have to worry about that paycheck. I mean, hey, Liv, you're not worried about your paycheck.
Well, I remember, when I was trying to become a PGA professional, just taking the player's ability test, shooting a number to pass the player's ability test. I could do that every day of the week until I had to. You had to dig deep. It's like, this is going to be my livelihood now. I need to be able to get across the finish line. So,
something you may not know, guys, believe it or not, and it's not that important. But when I first got on tour until I want to say early 80s, you could make the cut. You could play 4 days and not make a penny. Because if you finished outside the top 70 at the end of the week, you didn't get paid.
Wow. I did not know that.
Also, I got this petition up. I love this. I'll never forget. It might have been my very first year. I'd finished the round and I'd hit some bad drives. I've got to go over the range with my cat. I got to make a little adjustment in my setup to see what was wrong. And it was late, right before dark, and I went to grab some balls. And we bought our own range balls. I don't know if you know that. We paid for range balls to warm up.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
And I didn't have any money on me, and I had to kind of beg the guy, "I'll give you the $2 tomorrow." So things have changed a little bit, So that got changed. The finishing 71st started getting paid. But boy, golf has changed a lot, hasn't it? I'm really happy for these young guys, what they're getting to play for.
Yeah, they hit him long. So
well, it's funny when we were talking to Billy Crasser yesterday. He was saying, if you take the elevated events, the majors, the FedEx Cup Championship, it's like $500 million
prize
that
money
they're playing for. That's crazy. I mean, good crazy.
It is. It's relative, but it's not. I mean, when I won around my rookie year, $200,000 wasn't what I won. That was the total purse.
Right.
Oh my God.
But I will admit, my grandfather, who was a sweet man, who encouraged me when I missed tour school numerous times, you can do it. You can do it, Marky. And I said, thanks, Grandpa. I'll keep trying. And I said, you've been such a good supporter. I got to do something for you and my grandma if I get out there and do well. Well, I won the tournament, and I said, Granddaddy, what could I do for you? He says, that new car company, Toyota's got this Corolla, and it would sure be nice to get one. I could buy them a brand new one for $3,100. So
nice.
That is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't buy the tires on that thing for $3,100 now.
Not anymore. No.
Can't get an oil change for $3,100.
Exactly right.
One of the questions I always wanted to ask, and I try to ask every opportunity we get to meet, great pros like yourself. It's probably a little different for you when you're a golf designer, but I always kind of ask, what's your favorite golf course, and what's your best tip for an amateur like myself? I mean, I know what Christian always tells me, but I'd love to hear, what you have to say for the amateurs too.
Well, the first part of that question, my favorite golf course, you'd almost have to go in categories. I mean, like, what's your favorite movie? You want a romantic comedy, a thriller? But if you ask me if I had one round to play,
right.
And it's not because I think it's the greatest golf course, but it's unbelievable, is Pebble Beach. I describe Pebble Beach, and I love Carmel. I think it's one of my favorite cities in the world. It's just so charming, that area, the Monterey Peninsula. And it's not that I played great there. I never played any good in the tournament. When I played the old Bing Crosby or the AT&T, I think I finished 12th in the U.S. Open there in '92. But When you look at again, what I talked about earlier in architecture, what nature gave you, those cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean, you basically have views of the ocean from every hole. But really, when you analyze it, I think number one is a very mundane hole. Two is a straightaway par five. And then you've got the beautiful holes along the water. I consider there are 6 or 7 great holes there. There are, 6 or 7 fine holes there. And there's 3 or 4 that I think are very average. But that would be a place I'd love to play. Royal Melbourne is one of my favorites. Riviera Country Club. Oh my goodness, is that a classic gem? I always liked golf courses like Riviera because if I shot 78, it's probably because I hit it 78 times, not because I had 7 penalty shots and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Augusta National is unique. I had the pleasure of playing a 13 Masters, so I got to know it fairly well. One of my joys is to have a putt on the last hole on Sunday, and I think it was 1985 to tie the tournament record, but I missed it and shot 65. But the prelude to that story is I shot 79 on Saturday, so I shot even par on the weekend. And believe it or not, if we built this course today, you might get sued for it being dangerous. But St. Andrews is also one of my favorites because of the history. That's where golf came from. I had the pleasure of playing 3 Opens at St. Andrews and then broadcasting another one there. So I'm a big fan of that. And the other thing I like about St. Andrews, the first time I played there, it was dry and firm. And on the first hole, you could hit a 3-iron off the tee, would run out there 230. You had a wedge and you had to land it a yard over the swick and burn for it to stay on the green. And then the next time I played there, you could hit 3-wood off the first tee because it was green and lush because it had been rainy, and you could spin a wedge back into the swick and burn. So the course was designed, which I love as an architect, and we don't do this in America. They could be played and it would be totally different because of weather. Our courses are kept so beautifully manicured with wall-to-wall irrigation and all the things we do. They kind of stay the same most of the time. You asked me about the tip. I forgot the second part.
It's okay.
The thing I would tell a casual golfer who's not dead serious, trying to work on it all the time, would be to remember it's a game, to have fun. And the most important thing to me about the physical playing of the game, other than enjoying yourself and having the right mindset, is setup and routine. If you're aimed way to the right, you're going to have to compensate to get it back online. If you're aimed way to the left, you're going to have to compensate. If the ball's too far back, too far up, you're not going to be able to make a natural move and repeat it. So getting good fundamentals on ball position and setup, I think, is the most important thing. Secondly, as important is rhythm, but your rhythm won't be good if your setup isn't good. So just keep it simple. Just keep it simple and have fun.
That's great.
Yeah, I always just use the letters PGA, when I'm working with people, like posture, grip, and alignment.
Yeah.
If you have the, and I try to teach simple. Like, I'm not working with a lot of tour players. I just tell them to have, like you said, have fun, keep it simple, understand who you are, and learn how to make it work.
Well, something, guys, to illustrate that, one year at Sunday at Augusta, I was paired with Seve. And we had an outside chance. If you pulled a Nicklaus and shot 65 or 4, you could win. That's happened there, like Gary Player did that year and others have done, like Jack did in 86. I was actually playing in the group ahead of Jack, and Corey Pavin and I both eagled 15 before he did. And you talk about Ryder Cup and excitement. There was more electric over those 3 holes, and we were playing in front of them than I'd ever seen on a golf course.
Wow.
So I just think it's important to really enjoy the game and to so I'm walking down the fairway on number 5 with Seve, and I wasn't off to the start I wanted. I think I was 1 or 2 over, and you've got to be a couple under playing 5 if you're going to shoot that 65. So I was kind of kicking the ground a little bit, being a baby, down the left side of the fairway. Seve was on the high side of the fairway, and my caddy said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Doggone it, you don't always get this outside chance to win at Augusta." And then I said, "You know what? You're right." I said, "There's my mom and dad. They're still around. They're walking. There's my wife and some of the kids. There's my brothers and their family. We've got a couple thousand people on this golf hole watching because of Seve. There were probably the 28 family members watching because of me." And I said, if I were a wealthy businessman, what would I have paid to come play Augusta on a Sunday with cameras and gallery and playing with 70 Ballesteros? I've got to enjoy this. So that was kind of to pull me back into the right mindset. Is I tell my son sometimes, who's really good, it's a game, man. It wasn't designed to be played for money. It wasn't designed to be played to make you unhappy. It was designed to create emotion, excitement. Yes, it can create frustration, but it's just a game that takes you to every different emotion you can experience.
Absolutely.
Well, you can play with the same three guys every day, and you're going to have a different memory after each round. I mean, there's something just special about the game. I don't know. I mean, my father, I was a member of my first country club 4 years before I was born. So I came from a golf family, and it was awesome, man. And I'm going to play it till they put me in the ground. I love it.
It is a wonderful game. You're out in nature. Golf, even the most poorly groomed golf course, is a beautiful place. I grew up in a public course. It was never perfect. It wasn't lush. It wasn't expensive. But boy, I tell my wife to this day, late in the afternoon, when the shadows would fall over, it was beautiful pine trees all over. When the shadows would fall, it made it look lush. To this day, that's my favorite time of the day, even if we're taking a walk in the neighborhood, as the sun starts to set on a golf course. So the point is, there's no ugly golf course. It's a great setting out in nature. You can pick how many other sports can you play at 80? How many sports can you play with your grandkids and have fun? I can't go play football with them. I can't, go slide into third base with them anymore. So it's pretty amazing. And it teaches you a lot about yourself, because you're going to have adversity in all different forms. And it's not the failures or the adversity, it's how you react to them.
So you're calling the game here coming up next week, huh?
Yeah, I'm I still do. Probably they want me to do about one show a month. I probably do 7 or 8 by the end of the year for the analyst for PGA Tour Satellite Radio, XM Radio. So it's fun. And since COVID, it's really kind of neat. I get to do it from my study, from sitting right here. They send me this Mission Impossible case of gear that we set up. And it's hot wired right back to the studio, and it works out fine.
So it's on the Sirius XM Golf Channel?
Yeah.
Okay. I listen all the time when I'm driving. I'm usually running around doing real estate all weekend, so that's where I catch most of my stuff. So I'll be listening to you all weekend.
Yeah, PJ, just don't let me put you to sleep when you drive off into
I don't think that'll happen.
Just making sure you have somebody there to turn it on for you.
You laugh. Hey, you're making me laugh, because this started during COVID, and I have a friend who used to be a pretty renowned radio manager around the country in San Francisco, Minnesota. He has become a friend of mine. And the first 4 or 5 times I set it up, I'm thinking, there's no chance I can set this up. It's like 30 connections, and he did it all. I can even do it now. So that's that's my one claim to technology fame.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can have you down again. And we wish the best for your family and everything. And we hope to catch up with you in the future.
Thank you both very much. It was a pleasure visiting with you, and I wish you the very best on your endeavors here. We live in a golf state, and hopefully that your viewers will enjoy some of the things you're going to introduce them to. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thanks you so
Mark.
much. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
Have a great day. What another great podcast. I think this is just getting better and better. I tell you, great gentleman to talk to, had a lot of insight, got a little more than I thought out of that one. So Mark McCumber was great. What were some of the top things you got out of that, Christian?
Well, just number one, his engaging personality. I mean, it was like, we were friends with, like we've been friends with him for 20 years.
Right.
And, but he's got a wealth of knowledge. He played on the tour, he had success on the tour. He's got a management company. He's a golf course architect. His son's now on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
This guy's all about golf. And I think it was very obvious to see that how much he appreciated what golf has given to him and his family.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see.
And I liked his general approach, especially near the end. We started talking about how not to take things so seriously, but to enjoy, I call stop and smell the roses kind of thing. How
Absolutely.
beautiful it is just to go out on a golf course and have landscape that that is so pristine. And I love the phrase, there's no bad golf course, because you are walking out in nature, you're getting to be out there and enjoy it every day. And his laid back, I wouldn't say laid back, but his attitude towards just take it all in, is his personality.
Well, and what was interesting about that? He had to learn that. He talked about how he would get in his own way sometimes.
Yeah.
And when he started to focus on, that shot's gone.
Yeah. Let's
get into the next shot. Don't get ahead of yourself. You hear that cliche all the time. Stay in the present. The next shot's an opportunity for greatness. So
yeah, there's definitely something. That's what I love about doing these podcasts. And and when we ask them about the tips, a lot of them will say, the short game and stuff, a lot of things that you teach on a daily basis. But then when they get the reason why that they have that perspective is really cool. I mean, I'm definitely going to think about that when I go out and hit now and just like, that shot is done. And you always say, just forget that shot, but it's done. It's done.
Nothing you can
There's
do.
Nothing you can do about
it.
it.
In the past.
So if you're in the sand, you're in the sand. Play the shot. You've been left.
Exactly.
So
focus on the next shot, man. Like I said, the next shot's an opportunity for greatness. Well, and I liked what he said about it's what the man upstairs gave you.
Yeah.
If you've got a great piece of land.
Yeah. How you
instead of having to move the dirt, use what's existing.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really, really important because there have been a lot of manufactured golf courses.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't have a choice. You have the land you have.
Right.
But when you get a special piece of land and you've got a decent eye for it,
yeah.
I mean, it just pretty much lays it out for you.
Yeah. And probably the last take, I can kind of take away real quick is the stories he gave about being on the course. I thought were great because you felt like as he was telling the story, you kind of felt like you could see what he's going through. Some people tell you stuff that happens, and we've had a lot of great people come out and they all do a really good job at kind of explaining life on the course. You would understand it more than I would because I haven't put under that pressure, of like making a cut. But, we have our own pressures. But I really felt like, as he's talking the story, you felt like you could picture it.
Oh yeah, you literally felt like you were standing right there next to him, like his caddy, or maybe, hey, I'm going to hit this shot instead of him. Like he had a unique way of drawing us in and really making you feel like you were part of it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
It was a pleasure talking to that guy.
It was good.
He's good people.
I'm going to listen to him because I'm in the car all the time. And he's going to be on XM radio for he's going to be at Fort Worth where my son's moving. So
guess I'm going to have to download XM radio.
Yeah, XM radio, right? Maybe we'll get the sponsors take care of that $6 a month for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not asking for much, guys. $6.
$6, yeah. So, well, it was another great podcast. I look forward to our next one. I know our producer's working on some great stuff. We're working on some good stuff, working with the local things. We hope you enjoy this podcast, and we're going to bring more information. You guys have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. So yeah, Christian Martin, I just kind of give you a little downline who we are. I'm a realtor here in town, and I have a real estate team. We started doing these podcasts because of Chris Visser really, friended us and, thought we could do some stuff. And Chris is Chris is a wealth of knowledge that really helps me understand the game. And I sometimes listen and I sometimes do not. Obviously my score of 91 it means I don't listen enough.
Right.
Well, you're better than the average if your average score is 91.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. If you can break 90, you're probably in the top 15%
my
of the planet.
Goal.
So
beat bogey golf.
Chris, are you at a golf course down there or just an avid golfer? Are you a golf pro?
No, I'm a life member of the PGA. So,
cool.
And I have a golf academy at a place called Tatum Ridge Golf Links here in Sarasota.
Tatum Ridge is in Sarasota?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I've ever played any. There used to be a TPC there, didn't there?
There's still a TPC here, Prestantia.
Yeah.
Prestantia. I think who lived there was a person who, when I first turned pro, I played some Florida Winter PGA Tour with before I got my tour card. I think he ended up living there, and I really liked him. Jim Albus, wasn't he in that area?
Oh yeah, Jim. I used to play a little bit with Jim years ago.
Is he still alive?
Honestly, don't know. I just remember him telling me the story about playing with Jack one time and on the senior tour, and he said, "Man, I was really happy. I'm hitting it out there with Jack all day long." And then one hole, Jack let the shaft out and hit it 50 yards by him. And Jack said, "Jim, I don't hit it as far as I can. I hit it as far as I need to."
That's pretty good insight right there.
No doubt.
Yeah, of all the golf I've played in Tampa, I've played in Largo. I went through a tour school in Largo, and I used to play the J.C. Penney mixed team over there. And then we played it at Innisbrook, but I don't think I've ever played a tournament in Sarasota.
I don't think that we had a lot of big tournaments like that around here. We just had the Corn Ferry Tour come through here a couple of weeks ago.
Corn Ferry plays here. Yeah, they play here every year now.
Yeah, my son, when he made it through on Corn Ferry to the tour, played there. I walked. It was it's
Legacy.
like a whole new part of Sarasota. We were at a beautiful new hotel by a shopping mall. It was a beautiful area.
Well, that's Lakewood Ranch, Florida, and it's literally its own city. I mean, you can stay out there. You never have to leave Lakewood Ranch. They've got hospitals, schools, restaurants. They've got everything. It's a wonderful, wonderful community.
Yeah, reminded me a little bit like when I was early on tour. They were building the Woodlands north of Houston, which has become its own. It's become its own city. But anyway,
exactly.
Well, yeah, we'll not take too much time. Again, thank you so much, and moving your schedule around for us. And I know Christian has to run for lessons later on today. He's got some people lined up, but we'll knock some accolades out here. It's pretty impressive. Especially, I want to ask you about your new company here. Not your new company, but